Chapter 1. Tides of Destiny. The Arabian Sea had always been a cruel mistress, but on this night she whispered secrets to those who dared listen. The wind carried the scent of salt and iron, and the distant glow of torches flickered against the black horizon like dying stars. Somewhere beyond the waves, a storm was gathering, not of wind and rain, but of ambition, betrayal, and the kind of fury that could drown empires. Champa stood at the prow of her ship, the Vijaya, her fingers tracing the worn edge of the tattered flag that bore her sigil. A silver wolf's head, its jaws open in a silent howl. The Sultanate's galleys had been hunting her for months, but the sea was her ally, and the night was her cloak. She had learned long ago that power was not given, it was taken and clawed from the hands of those who thought themselves invincible. Aboard the Vijaya, the crew moved with the quiet efficiency of men who knew their lives depended on silence. The oars dipped without a sound, the sails billowed like the wings of some great sea bird, and the only noise was the creak of wood and the occasional hiss of a blade being sharpened. Champa's second in command, a grizzled pirate named Ravi, approached her, his face half lit by the lantern he carried. "They're close," he murmured, his voice rough as the hull's barnacles. "The Sultan's men have been scouring the coast for weeks. They know we're here." Champa's lips curled into a smile that was more threat than amusement. "Let them come. The sea does not favor the timid." Ravi exhaled through his nose, a sound like a blade being drawn. But the Sultan's new admiral is no fool. He's got ships faster than ours, and men who've never known defeat." "Then we'll teach them," Champa said, her voice as cold as the depths below. "At night we strike at the heart of their pride." The plan was simple, brutal, and born of necessity. The Sultan's treasure fleet was due to pass through the narrow straits near the Portadoo, where the currents were treacherous and the rocks jagged as teeth. If they could lure the fleet into the shallows, the Vijaya and her sister ships could pick them off one by one. It was a gamble, but Champa had never been one to play safe. As the hours passed, the tension aboard the Vijaya thickened like the air before a storm. The crew checked their weapons, their eyes gleaming with the same hunger that burned in Champa's chest. They were outlaws, exiles, and men with nothing left to lose, and that made them dangerous. Then, just before dawn, the lookout's cry cut through the night. Sails on the horizon. Champa's pulse quickened, but her voice remained steady. "Raise the wolf's head. Let them see what comes for them." The flag unfurled, a silver spectre against the dark sky. The Sultan's ships, sleek and armed with cannons, turned toward them, their own banners snapping in the wind. The admiral's voice carried across the water, amplified by a brass horn. "Surrender, pirate, and you may yet live." Champa laughed, a sound like breaking ice. "Tell your admiral," she called back, "that the sea belongs to the wolves now." The first volley of cannon fire shattered the dawn. The Vijaya shuddered as the shot struck her hull, but the crew barely flinched. They had been waiting for this. As the Sultan's ships closed in, Champa gave the order, "Hard to starboard." Now, the Vijaya veered sharply, cutting through the water like a blade. The Sultan's lead ship, overconfident, followed too closely and ran aground on the hidden reefs. The impact was deafening, the sound of splintering wood and the screams of men as the sea claimed them. Champa watched, her heart pounding, as the other ships hesitated. One by one, they fell into the trap, their hulls scraping against the rocks, their crews scrambling in panic. The Vijaya struck like a viper boarding the nearest vessel before its crew could regroup. Steel clashed, blood splashed, and the cries of the dying mingled with the roar of the waves. By the time the sun rose, the straits were littered with wreckage. The Sultan's fleet was broken, his admiral dead, and his treasure of gold, spices, and silks beyond measure now belonged to Champa. The crew cheered, their voices raw with triumph, but Champa remained silent. She knew this was only the beginning. The Sultan would not forget this defeat, and neither would the sea. As the Vijaya sailed away, the wind carrying the scent of salt and blood, Champa stood at the prow once more, her gaze fixed on the horizon. The tides of destiny had turned in her favor, but the storm was far from over. And somewhere, in the halls of the Sultanate, a new war was being planned. To be continued.